Hello, we are Team Virescent. We are here to discuss flood mitigation in Nolanville, Texas. Our team consists of 9 students, 7 urban planners, and 2 computer science students. The urban planners are myself, Riley, Andrew, Wilinia, Abigail, Alejandro, and Haley, and the 2 computer science students are Nathan and Joseph. A little bit about Nolanville, Texas. It's a 5,300 person community located in Bell County, Texas. It's currently quite committed to improving water systems, both in terms of flooding and water quality. Our team has established connection to Nolanville city government through its city manager, Kara, and it's through her that it was made apparent to us that the city has a serious flooding problem.
In defining the flooding problem facing Nolanville, it's important to note that our sort of perspective was shaped by our interviews with the city manager in terms of being informed on the high-frequency, intensity nature of flooding in the city. Sort of right where our stop that we had later improved, which we'll get into later, there's only really one exit in and out for this mobile home community, and so when it floods, it tends in this particular area to sort of splash up northeast, but also when it goes sort of southeast down here, because there's a bit of an incline there as well, this community has almost no way in or out, at least without cutting through sort of trees on foot, to avoid flooding sort of affecting them. And so we were sort of inspired by this conversation to sort of think of the flooding problem and how it sort of affected the most vulnerable communities within Nolanville. As such, this perspective sort of carried with us when we were determining our sites, as a number of sites sort of highlighted this sort of issue. Although it wasn't the only determining factor in us selecting the old Nolanville bus stop, as again we'll discuss later, it is important to note that flooding is not just an issue in terms of sort of how high the water is, but also how the environment around sort of the flooding is designed to cope with that. In that way, we were trying to address in dealing with this problem that fundamental challenge in making sure the environment is adapted, whether through rain gardens or other means, to be able to absorb this flooding so it doesn't just entirely go down the only channel that people in this community have. We further sort of quantified this flooding issue by using city maps to sort of show us the ebb and flow of South Nolanville Creek, which outlines a major floodway of the city. These areas surrounding the creek are prone to flooding, and some of the more vulnerable areas, as we've discussed, are located along there. The bus stop area that we had eventually selected is located sort of at the edge of this to sort of try and siphon off some of the flood that sort of goes down southeast into one of the mobile home communities.
Building off the flood zone information from the previous slide, this map shows a more in-depth look of the flood hazard areas near our selected location. The cyan-colored areas represent the regular floodway, areas that should be expected to flood every year, and the magenta-colored areas represent the 100-year floodway, areas that have a 1% chance to flood any given year. We can see that a significant chunk of the mobile home community is at risk. The flood hazard areas, however, do not give us the exact information that suggests how and where water will build up. When planning and designing flood mitigation systems, it's important to understand the floodways of an area as a whole and design networks of flood mitigation tactics that work together to redirect water into areas to be absorbed naturally. This slope map gives us a bit of an in-depth look to the topography near our site, where the darker coloration represents steeper slopes. We can see that our site location is slightly sloped and sits in a location where it will never be submerged. We can also see that the mobile home community is severely disadvantaged compared to the Bella Charca neighborhood just to the south. The mobile home community is entirely surrounded by raised artificial slopes, most likely to act as a sort of wall to prevent floodway water from flowing in from the north. Because of this, the mobile home community is almost like a valley of its own, and if a significant amount of water from the higher elevated neighborhoods to the south were to flow into the mobile home community, then the community will likely flood, despite the flood hazard areas map suggesting water cannot naturally build up here.
For our project goals, we're going to start off with our design goals. We wanted to dedicate our efforts towards two core issues Nolanville is looking to solve: city beautification and flood mitigation. The residents of Nolanville have committed themselves to helping the town become a place people want to live, work, and visit. Our team decided that any environmental enhancements to roadside visual appeal would benefit the town. In addition to that, we could design something that would someday play part in a network of flood mitigation tactics. This led to our decision to design a rain garden. Some of the benefits of this rain garden is that it is environmentally conscious. It serves as pollutant control, flooding mitigation, habitat creation. It's very low maintenance, and it also helps beautify the city. And then moving on to rain gardens. Rain gardens are a form of low impact development that are placed in flooding zones in order to catch, filter, and absorb stormwater. They can be implemented in people's yards to help with pooling water in their yards, or they can be planted on the side of roads or sidewalks to help with storm runoff. Rain gardens are an alternative to large-scale infrastructure projects that rely on concrete sewers and drains to redirect stormwater. Not only do they mitigate stormwater in an environmentally friendly way, but they also create an aesthetically pleasing roadside and interactive community garden. Moving on to our project outline and a little bit about our site selection. So our exact site location is the old Nolanville Road bus stop, which you can see at that picture, in the picture on the right, this sort of semicircle area. It's highly visible to residents driving by and are using the bus stop, and it has potential to become a great educational and visual attraction. Also, beautification of this location would promote public transit. This site also, conjunction with others like it, could work together to encourage floodwater to absorb into the ground or be diverted into the creek, therefore preventing floodwater from flowing into the residential areas.
The image on the left is a rendering of the semicircle plot our team chose to redesign. Rain gardens are usually divided into different zones, and ours was divided into 3 different zones. Zone 1 is expected to contain the most amount of water, and Zone 3 is expected to contain the least amount of water during and after rainfall. Based on the downward slope of our site, the water will flow from Zone 3 and will be filtered through Zone 2 before it pools and eventually drains into Zone 1. Our budget this year allowed us to work on 100 square feet of site, which is located in Zone 1. This can be seen in the dark shaded regions to the bottom right. Nolanville is located in central Texas, specifically in the Cross Timber ecoregion. The plants chosen by our team had to be considered native to the region and work well in our rain garden. The plants found in Zone 1 have the highest tolerance to wet conditions, and the plants located in Zone 3 are the opposite with the highest tolerance to dry conditions. Zone 2 has plants with wet and dry environmental tolerance. On March 28, 2021, our team had the opportunity to begin planting in Zone 1, and specifically with planting being completed in our 100 square foot desired area.
Our official planting day was on Sunday, March 28, 2021 from 9 a.m. until 4 p.m. Displayed in the top row of images, we needed to break apart the top hard layer of concrete sludge first into smaller sediments. Later on, we got rid of any large pieces of rocks and concrete from the site and made the area more even and leveled out. Afterwards, we spreaded out our new biosoil mix, which was provided to us by the city. As displayed in the bottom row images, we added our plants, added colorful wooden planks as a part of the fence, and added mulch as the top layer. Lastly, we watered the site with the help of the Nolanville Fire Department.
Now for the computer science part of our project. Our goal was to create a flooding prediction model of the city of Nolanville using a known flooding map of the area and trying to reconstruct this flooding map to reflect satellite images, vegetation, and elevation. The goal being that as the years increase and development and the landscape changes, we can use satellite imagery to detect potential changes of flooding risks in the area and be able to have a constantly updating flood map that doesn't get outdated. Because we were planning on using machine learning, we needed a data set, and collecting that data set was a massive challenge. What we decided to do was create our own algorithm on Google Earth to take a satellite image of an area and construct a grid of smaller images that we could then tag with values indicating the flooding risk. And these values might indicate higher elevation. For example, a development on a higher elevation has a lower flood risk than that same development, but on a lower elevation. Vegetation and proximity to water are also potential metrics that we can collect from images. And so hopefully by collecting this data set, we could run models to predict flooding risks and reconstruct a flooding map as many times as we would like in various locations in Nolanville and throughout Texas. Here we have the images before we did any processing, so they're just JPEGs in a folder. And then after our processing and visualization, we get something like this, where we have the grids of satellite images along with indicators that detail the flooding zone this model predicts the tile is in.
So for the future of our project, we've already encountered challenges since our planting day that will eventually need to be addressed. The soil and the mulch has already experienced significant erosion since March 28th, and no major floods or rainstorms have affected the area yet. Some plants are still growing in green, but some have started to brown and dry up. This could be due to the exposure to sunlight, water conditions, or soil conditions. And our design may not be appropriately scaled to the actual bus stop site, so we need to reevaluate that as well. We have a few short-term needs that are necessary to address before moving on with the project. We need to assess the soil composition, we need to determine the cause of the widespread erosion, and we need to find a potential solution for that erosion. We need to construct a plan for garden care and distribute this to the city of Nolanville, and we need to detail our project research and challenges in a report so that future groups can continue working on these efforts after the current Virescent members have graduated. Some of our long-term goals include completing planting Zone 2 and 3 of the current site, designing a comprehensive flood mitigation plan with integrated rain gardens and bioswales, installing a rain meter, and creating an artificial intelligence system that will track and report the success of the rain gardens, implement a citywide program that educates the environmental benefits of rain gardens, bioswales, and green infrastructure, and encourage Nolanville residents to find ways to implement green infrastructure around their homes and or care for the city's green infrastructure that's located nearby their homes.
We also want to give a special thanks to our advisors and partners listed here.